Hello, my name is Grant Fritchey. I work for Redgate Software. Now, I get a lot of questions. I get questions online, on forums. I get questions when I'm presenting in person at SQL Saturday events, at various larger events, user groups. And I thrive on the questions. The questions sort of drive me to learn more, understand what I'm talking about better. The questions really make it happen. And a question I got recently was people have a production database and a dev database, and they have a production server and a dev server, and the production server is slower than dev, despite the fact that production has beefier hardware with more memory, more CPUs, overall bigger, better, faster, stronger in prod than in dev. And then they talked about stuff that they did to try to fix the situation. And the issue really comes down to a methodical approach to understanding what's happening on the system. First and foremost, the one piece of advice that I could give anyone in that same situation, right? Prod and dev are different, right? Identify the differences. It's not simply going to be hardware, right? Definitely hardware, right? Definitely. I mean, I had one situation where we had a query that was running almost twice as fast in dev as it was on prod, and we couldn't figure out why for the longest time. And then we realized that this particular query was CPU intensive, and dev, despite having less memory and slower disks, had faster CPUs than prod did. And so it was running faster in dev than prod because that's what was going on. But the key is that you need to first identify differences in your hardware. That's easy. Then identify differences in your operating system, identify differences in your SQL Server instances. And the differences are not just about settings. I mean, although settings is a huge, huge thing, but you also need to make sure that you're on the exact same service packs, that you're on the exact same cumulative updates, that there's no differences there. This is a point-by-point check. You need to know that they are exactly the same in terms of these things. Otherwise, you're not comparing reality to reality. You also need to make sure that you've got the databases are the same, the data is the same, the statistics are the same. Otherwise, you're not comparing reality to reality. I've definitely seen, well, dev runs really fast. How many rows are in dev? 10. Production runs really slow. Well, how many rows are in production? 10 million. Well, let me think about that for a second. Seriously, this is not the case here. This is not the case here, that I'm describing. But I've run into that case before too. After you've validated the very, very careful checks to ensure that you are in fact comparing exactly the same things together, then it's about measurements. And in this case, they weren't being careful about the measures. They were, well, we think the execution plans look the same. Okay. I tried changing this, I tried changing that. Sometimes it ran slower, sometimes it ran faster. Wait a minute, you changed two things. Okay, what we need to do is set up measurements first and foremost so we can capture all of the behaviors. My recommendation, extended events. But we're going to look at wait statistics, we're going to look at query times, we're going to look at reads, writes, and we're going to measure everything. We want to measure everything in both environments the same way. Even if you choose to use, set statistics IO on, cool, nothing, not going to throw rocks, but make sure you do it exactly the same way in each place. Don't do something different in one place or the other because it will skew the results. And then once we've got to the point where we're able to compare, literally compare every point, then you start making adjustments, and you make one adjustment at a time. If you change three things, 5 things, performance goes up, performance goes down, performance stays the same, you don't know. The key point there is you don't know. because you've changed multiple things. You don't know which one's affected positively, which one's affected negatively. Maybe one affected it positively, but you made another change and it affected it negatively, so things have gone down. In order to understand what's occurring on your systems, we need to ensure that the systems are exactly the same. We need to ensure that we've got precise measurements in place, and we need to make individual changes one at a time. If we're not following a methodical, carefully thought out approach, if we poke and change and look at this thing this time, but look at that thing next time, and you know what I mean, and not be really cautious and methodical about how we get this done, you're going to be looking at various numbers that don't mean anything. You're going to be looking at points and differences that you don't understand, and it will make it very, very hard to arrive at a place where you are then improving performance. It's all about identifying a method, identifying an approach, ensuring that you're starting from a common point, and then measuring everything as you make individual changes one at a time. Hopefully that helps just a little bit. My name is Grant Fritchey. I work for Redgate Software.